Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another session of Easy Dharma for the New Normal. And today, as previous weeks, we have been studying, reading on Introduction to Buddhism by Geshe Kelsang. So last week, we were on the chapter on what is liberation. This week, we'll be doing developing renunciation. All right. So as per usual, I will check who's online. Let me see, am I online? I should be. I don't see myself yet. Kechara. Oh, good. I am online. Okay, silence. Hi, Esther. Good evening. Welcome to, Introduction to Buddhism. So today we are talking about renunciation, but don't worry. This chapter is, I've gone through it. It's a bit long, but much of it will be, it's more like a meditation. It touches the basics about renunciation, which is good. So you get an idea what is renunciation. Hello, Jillian. Good evening to you. So when you talk about renunciation, immediately everybody think about, we should give up our worldly life. We should, resign, shave our heads, go on an extended 3-month, 3-day retreat, give up everything that we like. And the idea is giving up. Because the English word renunciation is giving up. But in the Buddhist context, renunciation is not so much, part of it is, but what is more important is the idea why you're giving up. So renunciation is not about, as Rinpoche usually says, it's not about, running off into the cave, doing retreats. It's not about becoming a monk or nun, although it is, but it's not just that. It's the reason why you're going to become a monk or nun, the reason why you're letting go. All right? That is renunciation. The reason which we're going to explore today. The reason why you give up all these things, although we like it so much, it gives us so much pleasure. It's our life. For some of us, so we have this misconception that that itself is renunciation. So that you think that you've done so much when you've given up so much, it amounts to a lot. It's not the act of giving up. It's under the reason, the motivating factor of why you are giving up. That is renunciation. When that reason is very firm in your mind, which is you see the faults of samsara, you see the faults of existence, of daily lives, of our daily life, of the fault of it, the problems that arises from it. You see it, you accept it, and it has created a feeling of renunciation that comes from seeing, comes from perception, comes from understanding that all these things do not bring us happiness. That is renunciation. It is not the act of giving it up. The act of giving up is just a small part. It's just an act. It's just the motions. But the underlying reason, because we can actually act out without renunciation. We can become a monk and nun without renunciation. We can do retreats. We can give up a lot of things and call it renunciation, but it's not. Okay, so the underlying factor is very important, and this is what we're going to explore. And how to develop that is what we're going to explore today. All right? Okay, let me see. Got a lot of people come on already. Let me see where we are. Okay, Kelvin. Hi, good evening. Mr. Lam, Karen, Kin Ho, Kwang Ming, Jerry, and Yiman. Good evening to you guys. Welcome. Thank you for joining. You are like my usual avid supporters. Thank you for joining this session. So today we're going to delve into renunciation, right? So I think we can start reading already. Developing renunciation. Whenever we are born in samsara, even in the highest God realm, there is no freedom from suffering. Certainly, the human realm is not free from suffering. We have only to look around us, read a newspaper, or watch television to see that human beings experience terrible sufferings. Moreover, if we succeed in taking rebirth in the fortunate realms, it is only like taking a short vacation. Afterwards, we once again have to descend to the lower realms where we experience extreme suffering for inconceivably long periods. We experience all these sufferings because we are in samsara. If we think deeply about this, we will realize that if we want real freedom and real happiness, we must escape from samsara. To escape from samsara, we must cut its root. Samsara is not an external thing, it's not the realms. Samsara actually is in your mind. To escape from samsara, we must cut its roots by eradicating self-grasping from our mental continuum. This depends upon training in higher wisdom, which depends upon training in higher concentration, which depends upon training in higher moral discipline. These three trainings are called higher trainings because they are motivated by renunciation. Therefore, our first step in escaping from samsara is to develop renunciation. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about what it was explained here in the first page. It talks about the six realms it talks about samsara in terms of the six realms. Okay, and it talks about that although you may not experience suffering now, but there are places where you can experience suffering, like the lower realms, or even in the human realm. We just open the newspaper, watch the news, you will see so many people suffer terribly. And this is what is called gross suffering. It's suffering that is obvious. It is suffering of suffering, literal real suffering, as in pain and suffering. So it's obvious, you can see it's painful, it's difficult, and it's obvious. But there's another thing that's called subtle suffering. This is what Rinpoche calls it, subtle. Subtle means, things like the suffering of change, environmental factors that cause you to have discomfort, displeasure, dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is another thing. So what happens is, although it mentions, you take a higher, it's mentioned in the book that if you take a higher rebirth, it's just like a temporary vacation because you eventually descend, right? So, so although it's temporary vacation, doesn't mean that it's total pleasure. It just means that the obvious suffering is less, a lot less, but the subtle suffering is a lot more. So this is what Rinpoche said. A lot of people who look like they are very happy, very wealthy, very comfortable, but the actual circumstances you do not know. What is it like in their personal lives? And hence, that's why many people who look like they're very successful, they have a lot of personal issues. And that's why the gossip magazines all thrive on it, on celebrities and all, because they like to highlight it. They like to bring them down because we feel that they are up there. So these days, we like to bring them down. We like to listen to gossip. We like to see our reality TV and see how people, how they are so ordinary. All the problems that we have, they have, and perhaps even more, And so their suffering, maybe they don't have they don't go through, like issues about finances and all that, but their suffering is other things, other issues that are worse, self-esteem, of alcoholism, of addiction, because they're actually not happy. So my point in explaining this is that although there are places, there are people. Let's not go to higher realms. Let's look in our realm, human realm. There are places where people are physically, they look like they're doing well. They look like they're very happy. They look like they're very successful. They look like they made it in life. All right. So we wish they were them, but you don't know what problems they have to go through. So most of the time, their problems are more internal, more mental, more subtle. All right. Okay, let me see. There's more people come on. Well, it's just Sharon and David. Welcome. Good evening to you guys. I haven't seen you in a while, David. Hi, welcome. Today we're talking about renunciation. So, so this first part, I would like to highlight one thing is that although you are if you're taking a higher rebirth, your physical suffering is less. Your mental suffering or subtle suffering is more. So it's reversed. So if you go to lower realms, your physical suffering is a lot more. Your mental suffering is not there, is not much, because you don't have time to dwell on issues and things. It's just you're suffering physically all the time. So if you want to compare, there's not much difference. On a weighing scale, there's not much difference, because on a weighing scale of suffering, whether it's subtle mental suffering or whether it's physical suffering, it's about the same. Because mental suffering can be so bad that a person would not be able to take it, that they will end their own lives, for example. And then physical suffering is obvious, that it is very painful. So when you put on the scale, it can be equal. So you cannot say that, you go to the higher realm, you wish to take rebirth in the higher realm so that you end your problems here. It will not. So that's the thing about samsara. So wherever you go, there's no escape, because the actual cause of suffering is in your mind. So that's what it says. It goes into the 3 higher trainings. I'll reserve the explanation to the next chapter, because we're going to delve in the next chapter. We're going to delve. Let me see. In the 3 higher trainings, yes, the next chapter, that'll be next week. So I won't go so much into it. And in this chapter, they will not go into it either. It will go more into renunciation. All right. And Hui Min, is it Dr. Ming? Oh no, it's not. I don't think it's Dr. Ming. Okay. Anyway, let's continue reading. Right. We develop renunciation by contemplating the faults of samsara, such as those set out below. We may wonder, why is it necessary to contemplate suffering such as birth, aging, sickness, and death, especially since we have already experienced the first and can do nothing to avoid the others? It's interesting, this explanation. I've thought about that. I also wondered why. The reason is that by meditating on these sufferings, we realize that the very nature of samsaric existence is suffering, and that until we escape from samsara, we will have to experience the same pains in life after life. This includes a strong wish to escape from samsara by abandoning its cause, self-grasping. This wish is renunciation. There now follows 7 separate contemplations on the sufferings of samsara. So this chapter later on, from here onwards, is more of contemplation to develop a sense of renunciation. All right. It is not necessary to contemplate all these points every time we meditate. Rather, we should contemplate mainly those points that we have the greatest impact on our mind and that help us to develop renunciation. When a strong feeling of renunciation arises in our mind, we should refrain from further analysis and focus our minds single-pointedly on this feeling for as long as possible. In these contemplations, we think about the various sufferings experienced in the human realm. But we should bear in mind that the sufferings of other realms are generally far worse. The key word is far worse. So over here on this page, it's talking about how to generate renunciation by contemplation, by contemplating on the faults of samsara. What's the faults of samsara? Which will be broken down into 4 things, which is, they call it, in some traditional texts, they call it the 4 great rivers. Because when we have to meet this river, all of us have to ford it. We have to cross these rivers. It's something we have to experience, and there's no escape. Every single person born, whether you are a high lama, attained, not attained like you and me, or if you are rich, or if you are poor, or if you are successful or not successful, you will have to go through this. There's no exception, and it's a universal truth. It's not a doctrinal thing. It's not, Buddhists believe there is these 4 great rivers. It doesn't really apply to others. No, because the 4 great rivers is what the Buddha had experienced, which is birth, aging, sickness, and death. He saw that remember the Buddha, when he went on a tour, he asked his father to be allowed to go outside of the palace, and he saw 4 sights, which corresponds to these 4 great rivers. All right. So what is that? What are they? Birth. So each of it has a contemplation, and then finally an analysis of a little bit more explanation, and then final analysis in the chapter. All right. For birth. Oh, before we go into it, it's interesting because remember this. Why do we need to contemplate? Why do we need to think about? We really know all of us have to be born, right? We have to experience it. So there's no exception. So we've already experienced it. So why do we need to remind ourselves? We're not reminding ourselves. It is to generate this feeling of renunciation. Because there's only one way to generate this feeling. Because otherwise, we take things for granted. That's one. We take things for granted, and secondly, we are very attached. We are very attached to mundane things and things that we are attached to, our attachments in this life. So that prevents us from feeling that we need it prevents this feeling of renunciation to give up samsara, to strive for something higher, to go into spirituality. Actually, developing renunciation is to have deeper conviction in the Dharma, in spirituality, in something higher than the mundane. When I say mundane, it's not a put down. It's not saying everything we do in life is mundane and is ordinary, in a sense that it is bad. It is not bad. It is just that on a grand scheme of things, when you look about from your whole life and future lives, it is really things we do in between that actually at the end of our lives doesn't do much. It doesn't help us at the time of death. Sometimes it doesn't even help us 1 year from now, 2 years from now. The food we eat, we plan so much, we do so much. It doesn't help us in the end. It doesn't help you. We just waste our time. So in order to lessen that, and for us to give it up immediately, we can't, because our attachment is very strong. So what happens is, so in order for us to, it's not so much as giving up, it's more to have a bigger priority in something higher, and to develop that feeling, conviction and belief in something higher than the mundane, than just food, holiday, distraction, movies, career, family time. Is something higher that can help someone in our family when we practice more Dharma, when we get deeper into it. When we develop renunciation, we automatically will want to learn more, we want to practice more, we want to change, we want to be better, we want to do more Dharma practice. It's automatic. It's a sign of it. Okay, but doing those things does not mean you have renunciation. That's the thing. So so you don't go around and say, I've renounced, so I'm doing more Dharma. So it's not something you show off, you see. It's something that comes from within, because you've realized that the things that you're doing has less and less meaning. Not because, it's bad or whatever, like as I said. It's because you find something of a greater meaning. So that is a kind of a touch of a renunciation. Not renunciation itself, because even this chapter covers very basic stuff. Okay, anyway, so let's go into birth. We have to spend the first 9 months in our life crammed inside our mother's womb. At the beginning, the rapid growth of our limbs makes us feel as if we are being stretched out on a rack. And in the later months of pregnancy, we feel as if we are squashed inside a small water tank full of filthy liquid. We're extremely sensitive to everything our mother does. For example, if she runs, our fragile body is severely jolted. And if she drinks anything hot, it feels like boiling water scalding our skin. During this time, we are completely alone. Our mother does not know the suffering and fear that we experience, and even if she did, she would be powerless to help us. When we finally emerge from the womb, it is like being forced through a narrow crevice between two hard rocks, into a harsh and alien world. We have forgotten all we knew in our previous life and have no way of understanding what is now happening to us. It is as if we are blind, deaf, and dumb. Our skin is so tender that even the softest clothes feel abrasive. When we are hungry, we cannot say, "I need food." And when we are in pain, we cannot say, "This is hurting me." The only signs we can make are hot tears and furious gestures. We are completely helpless and have to be taught everything: how to eat, how to sit, how to walk, how to talk. That is the experience of childbirth. The sufferings you experience that we've gone through again and again and again for many, many countless lifetimes. It's just that we cannot remember. And aging. As we grow old, our youthful vitality diminishes. We become bent, ugly, and burdened with illness. Our eyesight becomes weaker and our hearing fails. We cannot derive the same enjoyment from things we used to enjoy, such as food, drink, and sex. We are too weak to play games, and we are often too exhausted even for entertainments. When we are young, we can travel around the whole world, but when we are old, we can hardly walk to our own front door. We become too weak to engage in many worldly activities, and our spiritual activities are often curtailed. For example, we cannot make many prostrations or travel far to receive teachings. If we meditate, we find it harder to gain realizations because our memory and concentration are weak, and we find it difficult to stay awake. Our intellect is less sharp than it was during our youth, and so when we try to study, it takes much longer to understand things. Unable to do the work we used to do or to help others in the way we would like to, we begin to feel useless to society and start to lose our self-respect. We are often neglected by our own children, and we watch helplessly as one by one our friends and contemporaries grow sick and die. Inexorably, our loneliness deepens. If we did not practice Dharma while we are younger and had the opportunity, we pass out our few remaining years with a growing fear of death and a deepening sense of regret for a wasted life. Ooh. A lot of people will go through this. Aging, besides not able to travel anymore, besides not being able to do much, besides being weaker, and there's so much limitations of being older, the worst thing about an older person is loneliness, because first of all, there's a huge gap already between your generation and most people around you, your family, your younger siblings. If you're lucky, you have a spouse. Many times your spouse passes away. Sorry, with the deepest respect. Or sometimes you're alone. Some people never get married. You're alone. So there's this sense of loneliness because they're not used to it. Because you know why we're not used? Actually, because being alone doesn't mean you are alone. Doesn't mean you are alone. Sorry, doesn't mean you're lonely. Not being. Being alone doesn't mean you are lonely. But for many, many people, being alone can be very lonely, because you know why? We spend our whole life distracting ourselves with a lot of company, because actually we are very lonely people. And in this age, company is easily found, on the computer, social media and all that, and we are distracted by this, which is like, so it's like it becomes an addiction. Social media, is an addiction it's an addiction that feeds loneliness. Actually, it doesn't actually help loneliness; it feeds it. That's why a lot of people grow to be addicted to it, because actually it makes us more lonely. And when without it, we get withdrawal symptoms. Well, you think because there are so many meditators, there are monks who spend most of their lives alone. They're never lonely. In fact, they are very happy, serene, all right about it. The only reason why they come out of their solitary confinement, or rather retreat, is because sometimes they have a calling, perhaps a yidam, a deity, or someone requests them to give teachings, request them for help. Because of their bodhisattva vows, they come out of retreat to help. Otherwise, most meditators who are attained, who have developed renunciation, would rather be alone, even when they're very, very old, and they are fine being alone. They don't need company, they are happy. And for people who have not done much Dharma, they will experience the opposite. When they get older, they want more people around them. They want the company of basically they want company of someone they are familiar with. It's their children usually, but their children are very busy, so they feel neglected and very, very upset. So Chinese New Year become a grand, huge occasion, because it's a whole dinner, so all the family comes back. Because why? If it helps them relieve a bit of the loneliness of being alone. All right, so that is the suffering of an aging person, loneliness. And then then the next thing is sickness lah. Let's carry on. It is scary, I know. It is scary. Developing renunciation, the fear that this instills in you, if it does at all, instills in you, is a positive one. It is not a negative one. It is for you to realize the truth of samsara. Everyone will experience it, no exception. Even I will experience it. You would experience it. The Rinpoche, some to a certain extent, will experience it, in a sense that perhaps not as much as we do, because they have developed renunciation, they've developed bodhicitta. So for them it's different. So in order to help, in order for us to overcome it, is to be like them, to attain that sort of renunciation. And then we have to go through the same path, which is to see the faults of samsara and develop this feeling of renunciation. Then our practice become more and more important. It's not just a motion. It's not just an act. As in just a wish. Sorry, not that was not the right word. It doesn't become just an aspiration. So renunciation doesn't become we aspire to be. It becomes a part of us. It's not an aspiration. Sorry, I said like act. Well, it's not. That's not right. It's not just an aspiration. At the moment, it's an aspiration for us. It's a wish to be that, but we can be. All right. Oh, if you have any questions about it or whatever it is, let me know about this or anything related to it or not related to it. It's fine, because I get a lot of good evenings. Like, hi, Mikey, Melky. Hello, Jerry, Celeste, Jacinta, Vivacella. That's a very unique name, Vivacella. Yeah, good evening. So sickness is very obvious, especially today, right? This one will hit home for us. Having been born as a human being, it is almost impossible to escape having to experience sickness in this life. When we fall ill, we are like a bird that has been soaring in the sky and suddenly shot down. When a bird is shot, it falls straight to the ground like a lump of lead, and all its glory and power are immediately destroyed. Very poetic. Even a mild illness can be completely incapacitating. We cannot enjoy the food we like or take part in the activities of our friends. We may be told that we must never again eat our favorite food, drink alcohol, or engage in strenuous exercise. If our disease is more serious, we may have to undergo painful and possibly risky operations. Should these fail, we will be told that the doctors can do nothing to cure us and that we have only a short time left to live. If we have not used our life to practice Dharma, we will be overcome by fear and regret. Young people in their prime may be struck down by an incurable degenerative illness, and though they may remain alive for many years, they will have to watch themselves slowly deteriorate. Realizing that their most treasured hopes and dreams will never be fulfilled, they may wish they could die sooner. When we hear or read about the horrible diseases experienced by others, we must remember that the same could happen to us. While we remain in samsara, we are never safe from the threat of sickness. All right? So, sickness is very obvious. It is very scary. It can be very sudden. Or it can be, and sudden means we get it suddenly and we just, like a bird shot down and then we fall down to the ground, meaning we are completely incapacitated. We have to lie in bed, cannot move, cannot do much, cannot do anything, cannot even eat some of the things that we like. So much restrictions imposed on us suddenly. It's a shock to our system for a lot of people. It's a shock, and it's painful, it's difficult. If you're lucky, it's temporary. Most often, no, it's not temporary. Sometimes it can be extended. The problem is about disease or sickness and illness is it can be extended for years and years. Like some people who experience cancer or whatever kind of illness that is stretched out for very long periods of time, and then finally, we die. So sickness is a very scary experience, but no one is free of it, because that's the nature of our existence, the nature of being a human being. Our bodies are very weak. No matter how much, you see, we think that we do a lot of sports. Some people, we take care, we eat, we measure the calories, the food we eat. We only eat the freshest vegetables and fruits and all that. We only eat organic, and we are so careful with food, and then we exercise, we make sure our weight, we make sure our cholesterol is all in healthy levels. But even the healthiest people will get sick. All right, so I'm not deterring anybody from exercising or become healthy, because that does help with holding a lot of diseases at bay, a lot of illnesses, versus an unhealthy lifestyle. But bear in mind that is not the only way that you can. That's not the ultimate way, and you put all your energy into it. I find having that kind of lifestyle excellent for people, but just putting your energy, your whole hopes that you have a good life, long and good life into it is just mistaken. It's in a sense that you're throwing up in the air. You don't know. Maybe you might get it, maybe you might not, depending on your karma. You never know, because COVID doesn't have. Just for example, taking this COVID pandemic, whether you're healthy or you're not, it can strike you if you expose yourself, right? And no matter how healthy you were, once you get it, there's a chance that you might die. So all that regimented eating and exercise will not have, will have no effect. So it's important to understand this. It's important to realize this, and not pin your whole hopes on a healthy living. Healthy living is to supplement it's to make sure that you have a good quality of life. Yes, that's excellent, but that's not just it. Okay, I just wanted to put that up because I think it's important. A lot of people when they go into it, it's like a religion, I don't know, there are some people, we call them health freaks. It becomes like a religion. Everything is regimented. Everything is, it's like, wow, if you reach that statistics on your weight and your cholesterol and your body composition, whatever, you attain enlightenment. Then it becomes like that. So don't go to that extreme. Okay, that's my point, because there's always a balance. The idea about it is to have a good quality of life, and a good quality of life is not just health. Not just health. It's also your spirituality. It's also your social life. There's many aspects to it. Balance. Okay, anyway, next one, that is sickness. Okay, now death. If during our life we have worked hard to acquire possessions and have become very attached to them, we will experience great suffering when we are separated from them at the time of death. Even now, we find it difficult to lend one of our most treasured possessions to someone else, let alone to give it away. No wonder we become so miserable when we realize that in the hands of death, we must abandon everything. When we die, we have to part from even our closest friends. We have to leave our partner, even though we may have we've been together for many years and never spent a day apart. If we are very attached to our friends, we will experience great misery at the time of death. But we will be able to, but all we will be able to do is hold their hands. We will not be able to halt the process of death, stop the process of death, even if they plead us not to die. Usually, when we are very attached to someone, we feel jealous if he or she leaves us on our own and spends time with someone else. But when we die, we will have to leave our friends with others forever. If we have children, we will have to leave them when we die. We will have to leave our spiritual friends and all the people who have helped us in this life. When we die, this body that we have cherished and cared for in so many ways have to be left behind. It will become mindless like a stone and will be buried in the ground or cremated. If we have not practiced Dharma and cultivate virtuous actions, at the time of death, we will develop fear and distress as well as bodily pain. So that's death. Scary, isn't it? The thing about it is, the first part is very interesting. It talks about possessions, because a lot of us are very attached, especially if you have a lot of possessions. If you have a lot of cars, property, cars maybe not, property, investment, we work very hard. A lot of us have spent many years working our dude off. We work so hard. We spend so much time. We spend countless hours every single day. Even some of us, even on holidays, we have to work double, triple compared to other people. And then, we amass this, and then suddenly we get an illness and we die. Imagine the attachment. Because when we die, the attachment doesn't disappear. The attachment is still there. But when we are aware that we're going to leave it behind, our attachment increases and we want to grasp at it. That's the problem. So when that's what they say in Chinese. So when we are dying, when we have a lot of possessions, right? When we work so hard, and it's not wrong to have attachment, but you see, attachment, wrong or right, will not serve us at the point of death. So we work so hard, actually it's an undoing. You know what it means by undoing? It's supposed to help us, but actually it doesn't. It does not help us in the end. It does not serve us, especially at the point of, because a lot of people work very hard. Some of us are successful. Some of them are successful. Some of them are not successful. Some are on the process, but you never know. And when they die, what happens? That feeling of unfulfillment will be very strong. And that unfulfillment, that grasping, that wish that they could have been better. It could have been done better. We could have, we have to let it go. We cannot let it go. We still want it. It will eat in us, and that will propel us to a negative rebirth. Very bad. So that's why in this contemplation, possessions is placed first. It's mentioned first because it's a huge, for a lot of people in today's world, because we live in a material age. We live in an age where materialism is all powerful. So materialism is really, really great. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone who has succeeded. It could be someone who does not have a lot or have very little, or someone who has on a way of acquiring. Whatever it is, it does not matter. Attachment is attachment. It doesn't serve us at the point of death. And sometimes it's our loved ones. That's why it is also important towards. It was also mentioned our friends, our family, they cannot help us. Nothing. They they can do prayers. It will have some effect, but it will not change things. It will not stop death. It will not necessarily, you know, what do you call it? Make it easier. It does not make it easier. We have to train ourselves already, because in a sense to practice that, develop renunciation. When we have renunciation, all these attachments will be easier to let go. Or in fact, we don't have the attachment at all. With every renunciation, we have no attachment. Actually, we have no attachment. Sorry, I made a mistake. We have no attachment. So death will be transition. You open the door, you go into the next room. That's what Rinpoche said. If you have a lot of good karma, so meaning a certain level of renunciation, so it'll be like you open the door and go into the next room. It'll be an easy process. So there's some people who lived it doesn't necessarily mean a person who has practiced a lot and only then they will be able to achieve that, because there are some people who pass away peacefully and with not much attachment, so it's a very peaceful death. You can tell when a person, I have a bit of experience of people, seeing people when they passed away. You can tell from their face, the way they pass away, when a person is very attached, their eyes are open, they're like, I'm not ready to go. There's an expression on their face. Okay, I'm not ready to go. I have so much things to do. I have so many things, possessions. I have a holiday to go to. I have a business deal to accomplish. No, you can see it on their face. So that kind of will not serve us. Okay, I have some questions. Sorry, I just went on and on. Okay, Sharon Ong asks, how do we help someone have a good death? Okay, it depends, Sharon. That's a very good question. That is something that should be on the Kecharians group. I will steal your question and put it up tonight, I think. So what happens is, how do we help someone have a good death? It's a very broad question. It depends whether the person knows Dharma or not. If the person knows Dharma, it's easier to explain. If the person doesn't know Dharma, it's more of the the Hollywood movie that you have to tell the person. I think I still would advise them more or less towards the Dharma, in a sense that the Dharma way of helping someone who is near death is to let go. Okay, is to let go of this life. And in fact, I make it proactive, in a sense, not just let go, and then what, I usually, for a Dharma person, I tell them, plan your next life, make requests to DS. So their mind is occupied of where they want to go. So it's easier for them to let go of this life when they think about the next. Okay, there will be a next, no doubt about it. Okay, so if you have been studying this, and maybe you have a less than 100% or less than 80%, even I don't have 100% conviction, but 80, 70, maybe you have a 20, 30% conviction that there is a next life. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it is also just to ease the passage. But ultimately, the passage, the ease in which you pass to the next life will be the determining factor. It will be the throwing karma. In Buddhism, we call it the throwing karma that will determine the next life. All right, so you want a good throwing karma. So it's important. How do you affect a good throwing karma? The mental state of the person when at the point of death. It's very important. That's why we have special rituals that we do when the person is dying, like place a lamrim book on the head, put some pills, bless rice, protect the rice in the mouth, recite mantras, and things like that and tell the person who's dying that everything will be all right, to let go. That's the general Buddhist way of helping a person who's dying. All right. But generally, depends. If it's just near death, it's also different. If it's like, let's say, a person who has a year to live or a few months to live, how do you let go? So you really have to talk to the person and see because if a person have like a few months or a few weeks, so immediately they have a lot of things on their mind, like they have worries about their property. perhaps it's their will, perhaps it's about their family. So you address these things. And if they have time, then they can address it and solve it quickly. Because you can't just say let go, right? So you have the practical way of helping them overcome all these things. And then once those things are taken out of the picture, then it's easier for them. But if it's near death, then it's another thing. Near death, you just say everything's fine. They'll be fine, they'll be okay, they're adults, they can take care of themselves. Everything is according to the will, stuff like that. Okay, Viva Sella. Okay, I hope that helps, Sharon. I will post your question. I'm going to steal your question and put it on the Kecharans group because it's a very good question. Viva Sella Te. How do we change our habits to be not attached? Oh, that's what this whole chapter is about. Actually, that's what the whole of Dharma is about, which is to develop renunciation. In order to be less attached is to develop renunciation. Not detachment, People always think that in order to reduce attachment is to be detached, It's like become a cold stone, like nothing really affects you anymore. It's impossible. It doesn't work that way. It's actually not that. It's actually to find a higher purpose. Renunciation is just finding a higher purpose in life that will help you at a point of death and your next life. That is renunciation on my own kind of explanation. Okay, so you want to have that kind of higher purpose, a conviction. It's not just you pray, you understand, you believe in the next life. Your intellectual understanding. It's not an intellectual understanding. It's not an understanding that you learn from me on this teaching. It is something that you practice the Dharma yourself. You have to do the practice. You have to do the prayers. You have to believe in the three jewels. There's a lot of things that go along. Once you do all the formal practice and then you learn and study, the feeling will come to you stronger. If it's just an intellectual thing, it's just knowledge in your head. It doesn't have the feeling, and it will not propel you, it will not motivate you, it's just another piece of information in your head. All right, so renunciation is that feeling, the fault that there is a huge fault in samsara in my daily life right now, and that you want you want to have a higher goal in life, meaning spirituality lah. Not I'm not talking of career and all that, spirituality. All right, a higher goal, a higher purpose in life that will help you in future lives. That is renunciation, all right, or for our level. All right, so that's how you can be non-attached, is to have that. All right, so at this level, it'll be easier for us to understand, because we've been talking about it. That's why we talk about birth, sickness, aging, and death, because all these are obvious feelings of suffering. There's a problem and there's a fault. In fact, when you notice when there's a funeral we attend to and someone close to us, there's a feeling of helplessness. We can't do much. We feel sad. We feel helpless. We feel that something is not right with our lives. There's a sense of feeling. I notice even people who don't believe in Dharma, who have no background in spirituality, their lives will be a little bit disorientated. And then there's a sense that, that this life is kind of meaningless, so they don't know what to do because they don't have Dharma. So once you have Dharma, it puts an understanding and grounding for it, and then you know what to do. And it becomes the funeral, the passing of someone dear to us becomes a motivating factor for us. All right? So, okay, I hope those explanations help. That comes from Rinpoche's teachings, from this book, from my understanding, my interpretation. I'm putting it slightly differently based on experience. In general, renunciation is by the book is seeing the faults of samsara and your wish to leave it, to become attained. That is renunciation, all right? So, but I'll interpret it for our level in a sense that we have a higher goal. So for us, what binds us to samsara is actually attachment. Attachment binds us to samsara. That's why your question matches this chapter. about attachment. So in order to let go of attachment, immediately you will let go, not possible. But you must first recognize it as a fault. Because not people may not recognize it as a fault, because it's pleasurable, because it helps me, my livelihood. It's my livelihood. It gives me pleasure. My property, my investments, my cars, my handbags, my clothes, my nice clothes, my fancy lifestyle. I can't live without it. I like it. There's nothing wrong with it. And we're not talking right and wrong here, all right? Okay, 다시 delete 공간 남겨. 다시 delete. I hope this helps. Okay, there's a few more pages to go. Next part. Having to part with what we like. Before the final separation at the time of death, we often have to experience temporary separation from the people and things we like. We may have to leave our country where all our friends and relatives live, and we may have to leave the job we like. We may lose our reputation. Many times in this life, we have to experience the misery of parting with the people we like, or forsaking and losing the things we find pleasant and attractive. But when we die, we have to part forever with all the companions and enjoyments of this life. That's obvious. Second part, having to encounter what we do not like. We are often forced to live or work with people whom we find unpleasant, such as those who criticize us for no reason, or with those who continually interfere with our wishes. Sometimes we find ourselves in very dangerous situations, such as in fire or an earthquake, or attacked by a mugger or a rapist. If our country goes to war, we may be called up to fight or be imprisoned if we refuse. Our homes may be bombed and our relatives killed. Our lives are full of less extreme situations that we find annoying. On vacation, it rains, but back in the office, the heat is stifling. Our business fails, or we lose our job, or we can use up all our savings. We argue with our partner, our children cause us many worries, and our old friends suddenly turn against us. Whatever we do, something always seems to go wrong. Even in Dharma practice, we continually meet obstacles. When we sit down to meditate, we are distracted by outside noise. The telephone rings, or someone comes to see us. Sometimes it seems that even though we have been practicing Dharma for years, our delusions are stronger than ever. Even though we try hard to be considerate, sometimes our family or friends become unhappy about our Dharma practice. It is as if we are living in a thorn bush. Whenever we adjust ourselves to make ourselves more comfortable, the thorns only pierce us more deeply. In samsara, aggravation and frustration are the natural state of affairs. So, what is this about? This is about the truth. Because even when we are very wealthy, successful, we always have to live in a situation where it's less ideal. Even though we have everything we want, not everything will be what we want, what we wish for. Definitely not. This is samsara, and this is how it is. Even if we see people who have perfect lives, but we don't live their life. We don't know what's imperfect, because what is perfect is shown. What is not perfect is hidden, perhaps in their mind, in their own personal lives. So whatever it is, we have to experience all these things. This is suffering. This is obvious suffering. And these are sufferings we go through on a daily basis. We normalize it. We think, this is it. This is life. Some of us normalize it. We don't think much about it. Some of us, it depresses us. Sometimes it makes us angry. It makes us jealous. It makes us, have all sorts of emotions. And we build it up over the years. And we commit more and more negative karma in a reaction to what is reality. Okay, reality means what it is, what we're experiencing right now as it is. That is reality. We cannot change reality in a sense that we can do things to improve things. Of course, Dharma doesn't mean we cannot be comfortable. We try to be, but we will never be perfectly comfortable. There's no perfectly comfortable until we have changed our mind, transformed our mind. All right? So the reason why all this is happening, why we have to part with things we like and suffer, why we have to always encounter situations and things and circumstances we don't like, it's because of attachment. It's very simple. It's because we are very attached. And I've explained before what attachment is. Attachment is not just, oh, we like and don't like. Attachment is when we like the things that we like, we exaggerate. In our mind, we exaggerate. We magnify. We only look at its good qualities. We only look at its good points. We only look at what we like about it. And we don't see the problems that comes along. That's why we don't mind to, for some of us, in order to get what we like, we will suffer a great deal to get what we like. And the problem is once we get it, we may lose it. So that's the problem. That's the problem of attachment, and that's the samsara. This is the inner samsara. The outer samsara was mentioned earlier, which is the 6 realms of birth and rebirth, death and rebirth, in different realms of existence. Inner samsara is attachment and getting what we like, not getting what we like, having it and not having it, or losing it, and the pain and suffering that we go through, and we torture ourselves. Actually, we are torturing ourselves. Okay, let me see. I have a question here from Mr. Lam. Can you elaborate more on how can a person who is practicing Dharma for years, but delusions are stronger? Oh, very good one. Mr. Lam, if you read, I don't remember the words exactly, all right? I don't remember the words exactly, but I remember reading it in the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. What you mentioned here is mentioned in the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. I won't have time to go through. Let me try to recall. I remember the words. It's something along the lines that we have not been true to practicing. Our attachments grows, our delusions grow stronger and stronger, although we are in Dharma, is because we have been superficially practicing. Superficial. You know what's superficial? On the surface. Meaning we do just the motions. We do the pujas, we learn the knowledge, but we don't practice. We don't put it into practice. What it means? What does that mean? We only practice what we like, we don't practice what we... There are some aspects of the teaching for sure we are not practicing. In fact, we are doing things that kind of go against the teachings. And we only choose what we like. So when we pick and choose teachings, we only practice what we like. We only want to listen to teachings what we like to hear. We only like to do pujas we like. And when we feel like it, not when we like, when we feel like it, that's what happens. Our delusions become stronger. It's because we pick and choose. We cherry pick. We do what we like. We don't do what we like. So that's the problem. When we do that, over time, our delusions will be stronger. That's a natural reaction because it's when we cherry pick, it just means that we have not internalized the teachings. So you can even be a geshe, expert in the teachings and spout all the teachings like me. Sorry, like me. In a sense, I can go on and on. I'm not an expert. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, but I'm just saying that I can go on and on. I can BS a bit lah, a lot, and seem to be an expert, but actually my delusions can become more and more. And people can use the Dharma and create a lot of negative karma when it's just the motions. So we have to practice as well. We have to, we cannot pick and choose. So we have to lessen our attachments, anger over time. Everything of the practice, especially how we can practice, because there's so many problems. Some of us are angry, jealous. There's so many things we have to. We pick the one that is the strongest. Not everything is equal, and all our delusions, our problems are not equal. Definitely, there's one that sticks out more. Perhaps it's our anger. Perhaps it's our attachment. Perhaps it's it's just one thing, and then we work on it. When we work on it, everything will follow suit. Will lessen. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I've got so many issues. Where do I start? Got so many issues. Start with the strongest. That's what Rinpoche said. If it's your anger, it's your anger. If it's your attachment, it's your attachment. Your wish to look, for some people, they wish to look good. You work on that. And if you don't, expect it to increase. You know why it increases? Another explanation is, in the Lamrim says, negative karma increases over time. It doesn't stay stagnant. It increases. All right? All right. Your reaction is, Mr. Lam, you say, so logically, if such a person is choosing Dharma to practice, this person will eventually will leave the Dharma. Not necessarily. There are some people who will never leave the Dharma, but will continue to practice superficially for the rest of their lives. And when they pass away, there's a chance it will open up. It depends on the person. It depends on how. It depends. It varies. You cannot make a sweeping statement like everything. If you practice superficially, and then you take negative rebirth either. But it really depends. So it's hard to say. But generally, if you practice superficial, there is a high chance that you might eventually leave it because you don't have the right motivation. If you're not cultivating the right motivation to practice the Dharma, free of the 8 worldly concerns, being comfortable when we practice Dharma when you're comfortable. We only practice the Dharma when we are praised, when given a gift, when things are nice and pleasant. Basically, the 8 worldly Dharmas is everything is nice and pleasant, then we practice. If it's not nice and pleasant, we don't practice. Okay, it could be the situation, comfort, it could be given gifts, it could be faith, it could be so many things. But it's generally 8 only. All right. Sharon found the one. When our mind wanders greatly and runs towards delusion, this is the wheel of Shaolin is written full circle upon us wrongs. Until now, we've neglected to meditate fully the defects pervading this transient world. Okay, that's a very good one. That's a good one. Yes, that's a good one. That's not what I explained, but that's a good one. That's a very good one. It means, what does this mean? When we have not meditated on the faults of this trend pervading this transient world, hereafter let's work to renounce existence. Not develop renunciation, right? What does that mean? It's not just not developing renunciation. It means that the person has not meditated on the issues that is pervading us, the Dharma itself, the faults of samsara, the faults of the person itself, on many levels. So when you not delve into it, then you become expected to grow more and more because negative karma multiplies. Vivasela asked this. Normally, if a person is deluded, they would not be aware that they are deluded or attached. My question is, how do we ourselves be aware of that meditation? Very good question. Well, when we talk of delusion, we're talking of negative emotions. All right, we're not talking of the severe psychosis of like bipolar and all that. We're not talking about that. We're talking of normal negative emotions. So when you're talking of normal negative emotions, 100% all of us watching here have that. You definitely have anger. You definitely have jealousy. You definitely have attachment. There's not a single person watching this. I don't know, maybe there's a Rinpoche. I don't know if it's a Rinpoche. What I thought I saw someone here say Tashi Delek Rinpoche. Maybe there's a Rinpoche here that may not have attachment. But we definitely have attachment. I can guarantee you definitely have delusion. So maybe you don't feel it right now. Because you don't know enough Dharma. So the only way you can know more and self-realize your delusion, yes, meditation is excellent. It takes a bit of time though. Easier way to recognize that is to study the Dharma. Easier way, because especially the wheel of sharp weapons, Rinpoche's teachings, just listen. Listen more and more teachings, because all the teachings delve specifically on our delusions. So when you listen, you hear it. When you hear it, it will hit home. The scenario, when it hits home for us, we can see ourselves in that situation, you definitely have a delusion. So if you can get angry, if someone can irk you, if you can feel sad when you lose something, you definitely have delusion. Sorry to say, you definitely have delusion. All of us will experience that. Loss, suffering, hurt, and pain, and love. Eat, pray, love. No, well, sorry, I digress. I was just joking. My point is, as long as we have emotions, negative emotions of jealousy, of anger, some of us have less, some of us have more. But whether we have less or more, we definitely have it. Okay, sometimes we don't realize the depth of our negative emotions, the depth, how deep it is, until we go through a situation that brings it out. Maybe sometimes we have never been through a situation, right? So what happens is we need to practice the Dharma. Meaning we need to learn the Dharma, we need to do practices, and put ourselves in the situation and see. Like in a community, like doing Dharma work. When we are a person who is introvert, we call ourselves introvert. There are some introverts just naturally they like to be alone. Some of us, we naturally like to be alone because we don't like people. We don't like how people think, how people treat us. And that's a sign of a lot of delusion or a huge ego, a lot of delusions. Sorry if this strikes home for you. I don't mean, but that's the truth. Don't worry, I'm not really criticizing. I'm so like that. All right. So when it hits you, any of what I've just said hits you, or makes oh, I could be that, or I didn't like that. You can feel it. Then it means you have delusion. It means you have delusion. Means you have attachment. All right. It's not difficult to discover, but immediately, if you're very new to Dharma, you may find this all a bit, wow, a lot of things to digest. So what happened is, take time one step at a time, listen to more teachings, come to, do more practice. Everything will fall into place as we learn more, as you practice. And even if you're not the intellectual type, you don't like to read books, just listen to teachings. And listen to teaching like Rinpoche's, It's not too intellectual, it's deep, profound, but it's at a level where we can understand. It's not a lot of jargon, a lot of Buddhist terms. All right? Okay, Alex Cheng, thank you. You find this interesting. Okay, anyway, let's get back to what I was reading. Okay, just a few more pages. I have a bit over time already, past my time. It's failing to satisfy our desires. We have countless desires. Many cannot be fulfilled at all. And others, when fulfilled, do not bring us the satisfaction for which we hoped. Many people are unable to satisfy even modest desires for the basic necessities of life, such as adequate food, clothing, shelter, companionship, tolerable work, or a degree of personal freedom. Unfortunately, even if these basic needs are met, our desires do not end there. Soon we need a car, a more luxurious home, a better paid job. In the past, a simple vacation at the seaside may have been sufficient, but our expectations continually increase, and now we need expensive vacations abroad. Hit home there, I'm sure. A lot of us want to travel. Ambition and competitiveness are a common cause of dissatisfaction. The ambitious school child cannot rest content until he or she comes top of the class, nor the businessman until he has made his fortune. Clearly, not everyone can be at the top. For one person to win, others must lose. But even the winners are rarely satisfied for long. The ambition drives them on until they are beaten or worn out or dead. Another reason why we fail to satisfy all our desires is that they are all often contradictory. For example, we may want both worldly success and a simple life. Oh my gosh, that's so true, isn't it? We want worldly success and we want a simple life. Or fame and privacy. Or rich food and a slim figure. That's funny. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Rich food and a slim figure. Or excitement and security. We may demand our own way all the time and still expect to be popular, or we may wish for Dharma realizations yet still covet a good reputation and material wealth. Ooh. Our desires often involve other people, and this creates special complications. Many relationships break up because of unrealistic expectations and desires. This part is very good, this explanation. We need perfection, the perfect society, the perfect home, the perfect partner, but perfection cannot be found in samsara. Samsara promises much, but can never deliver real satisfaction. It is not possible for impure, transient objects to provide the lasting joy we seek. This can be attained only by thoroughly purifying our mind. Ignorance is the fundamental cause of samsara, but worldly desires are the fuel that perpetuates it. Therefore, we need to reduce our worldly desires by recognizing their faults. All right, it's really, really good, this explanation. Wow. Failing to satisfy our desires. By contemplating these 7 types of sufferings, we have been the first four, I call it the 4 great rivers, and then the last 3 is to have to depart what we like, having encountered what we don't like, failing to satisfy our desires. These are the 7. All right, these are the 7 types of suffering. We will come to the following conclusion. Okay, let's read it, finish quickly. I have experienced these sufferings over and over again in the past, and if I do not attain a liberation, I will have to experience them over and over again in the future. Therefore, I must escape from samsara. When this thought arises clearly and definitely in our mind, we meditate on it for as long as possible. Meditating, we focus on this feeling. We wish to leave this samsara, this suffering, this repetitiveness of broken promises. A promises, not someone promised to you, is what samsara. You know, we are promised a perfect government, a perfect family, a perfect life, perfect happiness. There's no such thing. If we do not meditate this again and again, eventually the wish to attain liberation from samsara will arise spontaneously day and night. At that time, we will have to attain the actual realization of renunciation and enter the actual path to liberation. Every action motive of renunciation is a cause for attaining liberation. Wow. If we have some experience of renunciation, we can transform our everyday activities in the path to liberation by maintaining intention to benefit others and mentally dedicating the virtue of our actions to our own and others' liberation from samsara. When we meet with difficult circumstances or see others experiencing difficulties, we should use this to remind ourselves of the disadvantages of samsara. When things are going well, we should not be deceived. When things are going well, we should not be deceived. When things go well, we should not be deceived. But recall that samsaric pleasures are short-lived and ensnare us if we become attached to them. In this way, we can use all our experiences of daily life to strengthen our determination to escape from samsara and attain liberation. So that is renunciation. Sharon, yes, not just you, me too, a lot of people. Generally, it encapsulates, right, being rich food and slim figure. Our expectation and what we do is always conflicting. Okay, we want what we're doing, we hope for a different result. Just like what Rinpoche always say, when we want an orange tree, but we keep planting apple seeds. Apple seeds will bring out apple fruits. So when we get apple fruit, it means we must have planted apple seeds, not orange seeds. So don't be shocked, surprised, and angry. So when things don't go well, we've been doing the wrong action. So we have wrong expectation. All right, this rich food and slim figure is very Malaysian. It's not just you or me. It's a very Malaysian. Actually, it's worldwide these days. So what happens is, I think it's really, really powerful the 7 types of suffering, the contemplations, especially, I guess, towards the last one, which is failing to satisfy our desires, because we will never. Samsara is like this. It promises you, it's a mirage. It's just an illusion. It promises you a lot of happiness, like family, like wealth, like what else? Family, wealth, success, fame, fortune. It makes everything look so beautiful. TV paints it. We watch TV all the time. We watch the movies. Crazy Rich Asians. My favorite example. When you watch it, it's like, wow, I wish I'm that powerful, that rich. But when we attain it, trying to attain it is one thing. Getting it is another. And once you have it, maintaining it, the 3-generation curse. You understand? I won't explain too much lah. You know lah. So basically, there's no happiness to be had anywhere. If you contemplate correctly, there's this feeling that you want to leave it. So when you want to leave it, you have to capture that feeling and meditate. So when you meditate, that would be very powerful to gain renunciation. When we renunciation, our attachments will be gone. It will fall down. And then when it falls down, then we practice higher practices. It will come very, very quickly. It will come quickly. It will come easier, and we will progress. If we don't have renunciation, we can practice all the exotic practices, the deities and all that, but have little to no effect. All right. So everything is grounded according to what I've listened from Rinpoche said. Everything is grounded on renunciation. Renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness. I won't go into those two first. Renunciation. All right. So thank you very much. And this teaching is dedicated to a number of people who had sponsored it. Stacy Sidro. The dedication is, may everyone be happy, have equanimity, meaning no attachment or aversion, be free from misery and attachment, and quickly attain enlightenment. To an anonymous sponsor, the dedication, may global COVID-19 pandemic end soon. May sentient beings awaken their innate compassion and wisdom. And from Lini Neo, dedicated to all sentient beings. And finally, to Mr. Lam and family, thank you very much. Dedication, may the Dharma pervade to all directions. May His Eminence Sam Rinpoche return swiftly to Kechara to turn the wheel of Dharma. I guess Dharma wheel is to wheel Dharma. So there's a link there in my description. If you want to sponsor, it'd be very good. It doesn't go into my pocket. It goes into the organization. So you're sponsoring the organization. And sponsoring the growth of Dharma. When you sponsor, it's just a small amount. It's not expensive, trust me. You just click and see. It's not a lot, but it is a cause for us for the Dharma to go in. Usually this is what we call in Tibetan tradition, a kuyong. A kuyong is a kind of an ang pao. An ang pao, so that you create a cause for the Dharma to enter. All right? We'll do dedication now. Thank you very much. Jaju Sancho Rinpoche, Maya Panan Gyushe, Keba Yama Mi Bayang, Godne Godo Pewasho, Tony Tonga Rinpoche, Maya Panan Gyushe, Keba Yama Mi Bayang, Godne Godo Pewasho, Daso Genes Abaki Wadi, Tanandra Gunlan Kampada, Jeba Jozo Lozon Drapa, Tamping Ponido Sao She, Sho, Kewa Gundo Yana Lamada, Dremi Joki Pala Long Choching, Sadan Langi on the Rajoni, Doji Changi Gopang Yutosho, Kewadi, Yuruda, Lama Sangi Juni, Chua Chika Malupa, de Sala Gopasho, Chuju Jabo. Songava, Chosonama Pewala, Gekishamaji Wadan, Tuni Malashan Show, Dadan Shingi Dusundan, Jewish Latini, Giawalos on Trapai, Tamparin Bag, any modella Santala, Nemico Interaction, yes, and Tatu Delapa, Contrason Jingulo, Contrasoing Motroso, Contrasoing Tashi Show, Jason Lava Kusoratan, Namka Chinijo Gapadan, Los and Dami Join Sansugi, Jumus Tatu Negus, Ganirawe Koi Shingam, Penenda Malokyon, Chenrizik 1 Tenzin Gaso, Shapi City Patu Dan Gushi, Hong Tombing or Drumalupa, Dende Dallas so Koran Temple Lojana. Geba Soshi Shukten Cell. Thank you everybody and good night.